Hello, I'm Mike, and this is Will. We are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And we're bringing you issue 62 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar More Trans magazine today. With this issue, we've got another set of Citadel Skulls. Well, there'll also be a battle report as usual, and you can skip straight to that using the chapter bars or a time code in the description. But having a look through the issue first. First up, we have some background on the Fire Slayers. So we haven't mentioned before, they are a group of Dwarden who worship the fallen Dwarden god Grimnir, and they are relentlessly searching for a magical metal known as Urgold. This Urgold actually runs through their veins, which makes their skin as tough as metal, apparently. And it notes that even though they are considered part of the forces of order, they will actually fight for anyone who will pay them in Urgold, so they're true mercenaries like that. And he goes over some of the sort of units types within the Fire Slayers faction. Auric Rune Masters, their High Priests, and Doom Seekers who have undertaken an oath to fall in combat. And then there's more history of the Realm Gate Wars. They're going over some of the later stages of the Realm Gate Wars, where the Stormcast have started retaking their Realm of Life from the forces of Nurgle. But Archaon the Ever-Chosen, the chosen of the Chaos Gods, is able to fight and kill Vandus Hammerhand, and the Stormcast have been forced to open the Extremist Chamber, because they needed the immense strength of the Extremist Chamber in their Draconian mounts. Now we have a build guide here for objective markers, so this is using the Citadel Skulls we've had before, as well as some of the spare parts from the Hexwraiths and the Evocators on Dracolines. We're using some bits of sprue cut into triangles and some bigger skulls, and just generally building up using the spare parts to create piles of skulls and equipment to use as objective markers. As you can see, there's some examples here. Obviously, you use your imagination to make up your own. And then we have some painting guides going over some of the faces and other details of the Stormcast Eternals, highlighting sort of noses and mouths and the teeth of the Lord Ordinator there. And even going so far as to paint the eyes. It's certainly a painting challenge, so if you're up for the challenge, you can do it. You will need a very thin brush. They're extremely small areas that you're painting. But there's also other details like going over some skulls on bases, some of the plant life on some of the pre-molded bases, and even doing some freehand lettering and sigils for the Lord Exorcist book there. So if you want to practice your freehanding skills, you can certainly get some nice detail out of it. So they do look very good once you paint to this level of detail, but quite often you're not really going to see that detail unless you hold the model up to your face, so it's not something I bother with personally. But you can always do that if you want to. Well, that's it for the short issue review. And we'll get into some new rules now.
So before we get into our game, we have presented the rules for allegiance abilities. What is an allegiance ability? Well, when you pick your army, you can choose an allegiance for it. And that basically just means the faction or cause that it fights for, but you gain some in-game abilities for doing so. There are two main allegiance ability subcategories, if you like. There's the Grand Alliances, which are Order, Chaos, Death, and Destruction. We've learned about those in the lore sections previously. Or there are factions, and factions are things like, for example, Stormcast Eternals or Nighthaunt. An army can have a Grand Alliance allegiance if all the units in the army are part of that Grand Alliance, and they should all have a keyword for that, so all have the Order keyword, for example. And it works the same way for factions. For example, if all the units have a Stormcast Eternal keyword, then that army can be a Stormcast Eternal army. And it does note that if your army would be eligible for multiple allegiances, you have to pick one of them and use that one. You can't have multiple ones. And the allegiance abilities you get include battle traits, command traits, and artifacts of power. These are the ones that are mentioned here. So battle traits, which you learn about in this issue, are essentially army-wide rules that benefit everything in your army. Command traits are special things that your general can get that make them better at doing certain things. And artifacts of power are items you can give to a hero that give them some special ability or improve their combat prowess or something like that. We only learn about battle traits in this issue, but in the issues coming up we will learn about command traits and artifacts of power as well. And it also notes at the top that named characters, such as Reikenor the Grimhailer and Averon Stormsire, can't benefit from command traits or artifacts of power. But again, because we haven't got those in this issue, that will only be relevant later. And on the next page it's got an overview of using the allegiance abilities. So for battle traits, it says you can use the Order battle trait for Stormcast Eternals, or the Death battle trait for Nighthaunt, and that's the ones we're given in this issue, which we'll show in a second. And there's also a bit about command traits and artifacts of power. They're good ways of personalising your characters. And it also mentions down the bottom that when you have War Scroll battalions, they give you an additional artifacts of power. Then we have allegiance abilities for Order. So if all of your army has the Order keyword, then they can have the Order allegiance ability. And this issue we're given the battle trait for Order, which is called Defiant Avengers. That means that in the battle shock phase, you can reroll failed battle shock tests for your Order units. And there's actually a picture here of an Order army, so it's mostly Stormcast Eternals, but you can actually see some Elven forces at the back there. So, for example, if you have a lot of models with the Order keyword, you can combine them into an army with the Order Allegiance ability if you want to. And there's just a tutorial that explains how Defiant Avengers work. So these Liberators lose 3 models, fail their Battleshock test, but then they can re-roll it, and then re-roll it into a success with using the battle trait. Then we have the Allegiance abilities for Death. The battle trait for them is Deathless Minions. Each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to a friendly death model that is within 6 inches of your general or a friendly death hero, you can roll a dice, and on a 6+, that wound is negated. And again, there's a picture here with Death Army, so there's a Nighthaunt at the front, but then there's Nagash himself, and then towards the back you can see some skeletons which are part of the Soulblight Gravelord's army. So again, it allows you to build larger armies of Death that aren't simply one faction from that Grand Alliance. And again, here's a description of how Deathless Minions work. So you can see here that the Spirit Hosts are within 6 inches of the Briar Queen, and so when they suffer wounds, then 6s will negate them. And again, down the bottom here. But now we have the background for our battle, the start of a new war. So this piece here is just Lord Arcanon Boreas Glory Mantle noting that the Stormcast Eternals have been forged into a band of heroes through their struggles so far. But he also notes that the Nighthaunt they've been fighting seem to have more of a dark purpose behind them, and they're not just wild and undisciplined anymore. And here we have our sort of strategic overview map of where we're fighting. This is in the area of Batar, in the part of the Great Parch in the Realm of Fire that we learnt about in the last issue. As you can see down the bottom, the Nighthaunt have managed to find a forge that they can use, called the Dark Forged, for their experiments trying to fuse Caymanite and Grave Sand to make soul-sapping devices. Whereas the Stormcast Eternals up in the top left there have taken over the ruined citadel of Yunlat, which is guarded by protective wards that keep the Nighthaunt at bay. But in the middle there is roughly where we're going to be fighting. The front lines of the conflict are fiercely contested as the two sides battle. And there's a bit more detail here, so the Stormcast Eternals, having established a base of operations, now have to prepare to siege the Nighthaunt forge that they've taken over, but first they have to break through the front lines. There's also a bit about Hallowheart, the city of Sigmar, which is nearby. And also the Stormcast forces list, you can see there's a list of heroes and troops there, which we get to pick from this battle. I won't go over those now, because you'll just see the armies are picked from them in a minute. You can read them on screen if you want to. And the Nighthaunt have established themselves at the bastion, which is called Rexar. It's an ancient chaos forge, and it's where they're trying to smelt the realm stone they've captured. It mentions they're trying to make devices to trap the souls of Stormcast Eternals to stop them from reforging. But apparently their early efforts have proved quite dangerous even to the Nighthaunt themselves. And again, there's a Nighthaunt forces list of heroes and troops which the Nighthaunt get to pick from. And at last we have our battle plan, Rising Inferno. So we'll have a look at the map first. We've got the Nighthaunt and Stormcast territories 6 inches on from their ends. There's an objective on the edge of each territory, 3 inches on from the long edge, as you can see there, for 2 objectives total. It says we may use the River of Fire rules from the previous issue, which we will do, just it makes it more interesting. It mentions that the printed terrain has no effect on the games except if you're using the River of Fire rules. It doesn't actually say that we should set up the terrain we got in the previous issue, but I assume we are supposed to. The player who won the previous game will get a triumph, and that was the Nighthaunt, so they'll be able to roll for a triumph before the battle begins. The objectives have a special rule, they're terrifying, so you should subtract 1 bravery from units that are within 6 inches of an objective. For the victory conditions, from any point from the start of the 3rd battle round onwards, a player immediately wins if they control both objectives at once, but if that's not the case, by the end of the 4th battle round, the player who's slain the most enemy units wins. And then the armies, both sides get 2 choices from their heroes list and 3 choices from their troops list, which were printed on the previous page. Well, that's it for the battle plan, so yeah, we'll show you the armies we've come up with and then get on to the game. So here is my Stormcast army. For my 2 hero choices, we've got Xander Anzabot, who is obviously a Knight Incantor, and the Lord Exorcist. Behind them, a unit 5 Secretors with 3 Great Maces and 4 Castigators, and at the back, 3 Retributors. And this is the Nighthaunt army.
Yeah, so in front we've got the Guardian of Souls and the Spirit Torment. We have a unit of 5 Harridans, a unit of 5 Bladegeist Revenants, and a unit of 5 Hexwraiths.
And here's an aerial view of the battlefield, where, as we said, we did set the terrain up, even though it doesn't specifically say to do so, because it would be a shame not to use it, given we got it in the previous episode. And we've got 1 objective down here, on the edge of the Nighthaunt territory, which is kind of on the edge of that bridge there, and 1 up here on the edge of the Stormcast territory. So we'll go over the Nighthaunt deployment first, because they had to set up a unit first in this game.
Yeah, so at the top of the board I have the Hexwraiths with the Spirit Torment behind them. And then on the other side of the board I have the Bladegeist, the Harridans with the Guardian of Souls with them. The Guardian of Souls will be my general, and I did roll for a triumph, and I got the one that lets you reroll failed saves once per game on a unit for a phase.
I think that's Indomitable.
Yeah.
And on the other end we have the Stormcast deployment. We've got the Sequitors on the right of the picture, the Zandra as you walk behind them, the Castigators in the centre, the Lord Exorcist up at the top, and then the Retributors on the objective. The Lord Exorcist will be my general. So nothing else left to do, so we're on to battle round 1, and we're rolling off to see who gets to choose who to go first. I've got a 1.
I got a 2. Yeah, I'm going to make the Stormcast go first, I think.
So therefore be on to Stormcast turn 1. So starting off, Zandra Azubot's going to try and cast a Spirit Storm. There are no Nighthaunt within 18 inches to take mortal wounds, but it'd be good to get the aura of -1 run and charge off. So needing a 7, getting a 9.
We'll try and combine that with the Guardian of Souls, needing a 10, only getting a 5.
And then the Lord Exorcist will just try and cast Mystic Shield. Needing a 6, nope, failing with a 4. Then we're moving up, so the battle line has just shifted up pretty much 5 inches. The Castigators, 3 of the Castigators are in range to shoot things. Over at the top, the Retributors ran just to keep up because they're slow. And down the bottom, the Sequitors are hanging back a bit because even the Nighthaunt can't automatically run over the lava without potentially taking damage, so there's a little bit less of a concern that I'll be attacked immediately if they get the double turn down here. But then we can go on to the shooting phase. So this Castigator here is in range of a Bladegeist Revenant, so he will shoot at them. And the Prime and the other Castigator at the top of the unit are in range of a Hex Wraith, and the remaining one isn't in range of anything. So we'll do power of accuracy to allow us to reroll 1s to hit. We'll do the 1 shot at the Bladegeist first, hitting on a 3. Reroll the 1. 6s do things, but that's a 5. So it wounds on a 3. It does.
4+ save. Failed. 6+ to ignore. Nope. So that's a dead Bladegeist. I'll tell you with that one at the back.
Yeah, so that's using the Death Allegiance ability. And we've got a black dice for the Prime. He hits on a 2, the other one on a 3 at the Hex Wraiths. Both hit, normally, and we're winning on 3s. Getting 2 wounds.
4+ saves. Made both.
But that's all for my turn, because there's obviously no charging to do. So on to Nighthaunt, turn 1.
So in my hero phase, I gain a command point, and the Guardian of Souls is going to try and cast Spectral Law. Needing a 6. Gaining a 7.
Try and unbind it with Zandra, I suppose. Nope, not with a 4.
Well, I'm going to bring back that dead Bladegeist. He's going to go in front of the unit.
Yeah, so normally a d6, but only 1 dead, so automatically comes back.
So my movement's fairly simple. The Harridans and the Bladegeist are going to move up a little bit over that bridge, with the Guardian of Souls backing them up. Then up at the top, the Hex Wraiths and the Spirit Torment are going to move up a little bit as well. Going to be playing it safer, because if I get the double turn I could still charge. But that's going to be it for my turn.
Yep, so we'll be on to the next battle round. So on to battle round 2, and rolling off once again. I got a 1 again, so that means that I won't get to choose regardless.
So I will choose to go first this time.
So on to Nighthaunt turn 2.
The Guardian of Souls is just going to try and cast... he's going to try and cast Mystic Shield, actually, rather than Arcane Bolt. Needing a 6, getting an 8.
Try and unbind. Oh, yeah, I did with a 9.
So, in my movement phase, this crowd of the Harridans and the Bladegeist are moving up normally, while the Guardian of Souls ran to keep up with them, hopefully to project his aura. Over here at the top, the Spirit Torment ran. The Hex Wraiths have moved up to basically cover the bridge to stop people charging him.
And you spent a command point to turn the...
Yeah, he rolled a 2 on his run roll, and I spent a command point to turn it into a 6. So I'm going to do the Harridans first. And we've got -1 to this result from Spirit Storm, or whatever it's called. I got a 4, that's definitely not enough to get in, so I'm going to spend a command point to re-roll that.
I think we need a 6 on the dice with the -1.
Or into a 10, or a 9. So the Harridans will finish their charge like that, effectively getting the Sequitors and the Castigators, but not Zandra into range. I'm not going to do any more charges, so the Harridans will go. Okay,
well at the start of the combat phase, I will pick the Sequitors to do powers of weapons.
Okay, so these 4 regular Harridans are going to attack the Castigators, and then the Slasher Crone will fight the Sequitors. So I will do the 4 regular Harridans on the Castigators first. They have 12 attacks between them, hitting on 4s, re-rolling 1s.
They're all still wholly within 12 of the Spirit Torment.
Woof.
No 1s, and a lot of 2s and 3s.
That's 2 hits. And wounding on 2s, 6s are 2 damage. Well, and then can the Slasher Crone do better than her sisters? 4 attacks on the Sequitors, hitting on 4s, re-rolling 1s. Well, she got more hits than the other 3 combined, with 3 hits. Wounding on 2s, and 6s are 2 damage.
Wow, so that's not too bad.
-1 rend.
So 5+ saves, I'll do the 2 damage ones first.
Re-rolling 1s.
Re-rolling 1s, that's 1 going through. No, it was a 2. So that's 4 damage actually from those, and then I've got the third one as well. which I also failed on a 4. So all by itself, the Cyclone takes out these 2 Secretors with the shields, and then put a wound on that Great Mace there. But then, I suppose the Secretors might as well fight back first. We've only got the Great Maces left, but 7 attacks between them, hitting on 3s, 6s are D3 hits, and re-rolling misses because of powered weapons. So we need those re-rolls, which give us an extra 6, but otherwise only 3 hits. So 3 plus 2 D3, 8 hits total. Wounding on 3s. 5 wounds.
Yeah, I'm going to use my Triumph here to allow the Harridans to re-roll their saves. So 5 4+ saves re-rolling, and re-rolling. So that's failed 2. There are 3 Harridans within 6 inches of the Guardian of Souls, so I'll allocate 3 damage to them. On a 6s they'll ignore. So none of them ignore, and then another one will die because they're not in range. All the regular Harridans will be killed.
Well, then the Castigators actually do get to pile in and fight as well. They can pile in like this, and 2 of them are within range to strike. So 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, getting 2, and wounding on 4s, getting nothing. The Cyclone does not need to take a battle shock test because she's not within 6 inches of the scary objective, and she has bravery 10. The Secretors, however, do have to take a battle shock test. On a 6, 1 will run away. So a 6 will fail, but thanks to my Allegiance ability I can re-roll it, but I didn't roll a 6 anyway, so we're good. But that is the end of Nighthaunt turn 2. On to Stormcast turn 2. So in the hero phase, I gain a command point to go up to 2. We're going to start by doing Spirit Storm with Zandria, because it will potentially kill that Harridan if it goes off on a 7. Not with a 3. And then the Lord Exorcist will try and do Arcane Bolt to try and kill that Harridan. Needing a 5, he gets a 9.
Might as well try and unbind that, needing a 10.
No. So the Harridan does take a mortal wound and dies. But that's important because it frees up the Castigators to move and shoot something else.
Also stops me bringing any back.
Then in the movement phase, the 3 remaining Secretors are advancing bravely across the bridge, bit towards the Bladegeist Revenants. The Lord Exorcist ran, he rolled a 5, that's enough to get him into the middle here where he's within 6 inches of everything to use his Redemptor casket on them. The Castigators moved this way, towards the objective, because I don't want these Hex Wraiths doing anything sneaky, like flying over the top of my models and taking the objective away, and then instantly winning the game. And the Retributors moved up to try and block them off further, and Zandria also ran, she rolled 6, which brought her all the way around the back, basically just for extra security on that objective. So that brings us on to the shooting phase. At the start of it, the Lord Exorcist gets to use his Redemptor casket, so everything within 6 might take a mortal wound on a 4+. That's actually all of the Nighthaunt units from where he's positioned. So I'll roll for all these at once. So we'll start with the Hex Wraith on a 4+. Nope. The Spirit Torment. Nope. Guardian of Souls. Nope. And the Bladegeist Revenants. No, nobody takes a mortal wound. And then the Castigators will shoot at the Hex Wraiths. So re-rolling ones to hit prime hits on the 2. 6s do extra hits. That is impressively cocked. I can re-roll that.
That's amazing.
Oh, into a 6. D3 hits from that. Oh, 3. So 5 hits total. Wounding on 3s. 4.
4+ saves. Made 2. So I'll put the damage on this guy on the end. 6+ chance to ignore. Nope. So he is killed.
And that brings us to the charge phase. There's only going to be 1 charge, which will be the Secretors. They probably need a 3 or a 4. They get a 10. They'll come around here like this, just staying 3 inches away from the Guardian of Souls. No more charges, so on to the combat phase where they'll do powered weapons, and then they will fight. And they'll pile in round the back of the Bladegheists, because actually if they manage to do well here, they can even threaten the Nighthaunt home objective, potentially. Then they have 7 attacks, hitting on 3s, re-rolling misses. We've got 3 6s, we can re-roll the misses into another 6. So 2 ordinary hits, and then an extra 4d3 for 11 more.
13 hits.
Wounding on 3s. 11 wounds.
11, 4+ 8, yeah. 6 fails, so that's 12 damage. So I've got 12 6+ ignores. I didn't make a single one, so they're definitely all dead. At least twice over.
And then, well, there's no more fights. So that's the end of the turn. So we're on to battle round 3 and rolling off again. I rolled a 1 again, so the Nighthaunt get to choose.
Oh, I guess I will go first. Gain a command point. We're going to try and cast Spectral Lore. Needing a 6. Gaining a 4. So we're going to go for the maximum risk strategy. So the Hex Wraiths are moved up, so they're 3 inches away from the Retributors. And the Guardian of Souls and the Spirit Torment have gone the other way. And then it's on to the charge phase. We'll start with the Hex Wraiths in the charge phase, because they are by far the most important unit.
Yeah, they need to get on the objective, basically.
They need a big roll. 5 is not enough, going to re-roll that. Re-roll into a 3. I concede. That would be enough to get them into range with Retributors, but they're probably just going to get crushed by everything. I don't think the Hex Rays are going to do too well against the Retributors. They need to get over here so that all of my units could charge the Castigators and not bring all of these guys in, and then also all be on the objective.
Yeah, because I have 7 models on that objective at the moment, so the Nighthaunt needed to get those Hex Rays on the objective and kill several of my models. And
and I could have sent them over there to stop the Secretors. That would be the more sensible option, which probably would have worked, but I think I would have lost that in the end anyway, because the Stormcast have killed 2 of my units and I would have killed 1 at most. So
yeah, because if the Hex Rays fail to take that objective, the Secretors will just walk over to this one and claim it, and I'll win instantly anyway. So that will be a Stormcast victory, and we will recap the game for you now. So that was the game for issue 62 of More Trials magazine. How do you think that went?
not very well. Actually, it was going very well right up until I tried to kill something and then didn't kill anything at all.
It was going fine until you started rolling dice, basically. Yeah, the Harridans, the Slasher Crone did pretty well to kill 2.5 Secretors, but the other ones really should have killed some Castigators. That would have had a big impact on the game, actually, I think.
Yeah, if more of them had survived, the Secretors couldn't have charged the Blade Geists. And even if the Harridans had all been killed then, I think that would have been a big difference, because I could have charged the Blade Geists in.
And a couple of dead Castigators would have made that objective at the end much easier for you to potentially take. And obviously the Secretors did pretty amazingly well, but that's kind of what Secretors do. Yeah, they just roll a lot of 6s in that game. And it was really, that actually came down to that. My spellcasting didn't really do anything. Your spellcasting didn't really do anything. The Castigators killed a Hexwraith and a Blade Geist, but the Blade Geist came back anyway.
I didn't make any of my 6+ to ignore wounds, but I don't think it would have made any difference because the Blade Geist got completely obliterated anyway.
Might keep the Hexwraith alive, I suppose, if you rolled one of those. But yeah, it was just the nature of the scenario that meant I actually, if it had just been a little bit different there at the end, if those Hexwraiths had been able to charge in and I didn't have as many models there, then you could just immediately take the objective, just because that instant win condition. Any point out at the start of the third battle round, and you check for objective control at the end of a turn, so the Nighthaunt getting to go first in that turn, in other circumstances, could have just taken that objective and won the game instantly without.
Yeah, the Hexwraiths were, I basically took them because they're so fast that I can just nib them in. I don't think it would have been a deserved victory. It would have been, it would have been playing to the objective, I suppose. And pretty unfair for the Stormcast, that kind of rule, because you already have small units. If you hadn't been able to charge, you might have had time to get to my objective in the fourth turn. If I can hold you up for just 1 or 2 turns, or even if I just get a unit of chain rasps onto one of the objectives. You took an army that was pretty slow as well.
Well, because I knew the Nighthaunt were much faster, I had to be careful about leaving my home objective unattended. It was never really the plan to go for your objective. I was really just trying to hold on to mine and kill more units, because I do have some fast units in that list, but there's like 2 prosecutors who, firstly, there's only 2 models, and secondly, they've only got 4 wounds between them.
Still weird there's only 2 as well.
Or 4 Griff Hounds, which don't have any damage output really. For a few wounds, but they don't really do any damage.
Well, I think the Griff Hounds would probably be worth taking, actually, just for their retreat ability, just to get extra movement.
And the Evocators on Dracolines, there are only 2 of them, they take up 2 troops choices, which would have been
Yeah, you really need numbers rather than
exactly, and that's something that the Stormcast struggle with. I suppose ultimately my plan worked, but it could easily have not worked if your dice rolls had been a bit better, or a couple of other things had been different. Yeah, and the Death Allegiance ability, it's better than nothing.
The 6+ to ignore wounds really isn't, it's not amazing. It's a very small durability boost. I think what really is, there's going to be cases where it will keep a unit alive, so you can bring some back with Spectral Law. That's probably the main cases where it's going to be useful. There probably will be cases maybe where you'll roll like 3 6s and a unit will take no casualties, but that's going to be the exception rather than the rule. It's really just going to keep extra models alive, like a Spirit Host alive with 1 wound, or keep a Blade Geist alive so you can bring the rest of the unit back.
It does apply across your whole army, so it does reduce damage across the whole army, and it's frustrating sometimes to play against an army that has army-wide damage reduction rules, because it's just...
Yeah, you'll fail to kill a character or something.
Yeah, just because of 1/6 you roll, so it can be frustrating to play against, but it will improve the Nighthaunt's durability probably in the long run. It just... unfortunately, you didn't roll any 6s in this game, and it wouldn't matter even if you did, but... The Nighthaunt have their own set of allegiance abilities, which you can see in action if you actually watch another game we did. We're using the full rules, but it gives them a lot more bonuses than this. So it's nice they have something to start with, but they should have more than this.
They have Deathless Minions. I think it's called Deathless Spirits. It's units that are wholly within 12 inches, so it's much easier to use. It's got a longer range. Yeah. Whereas this is a little bit confusing, but I think it's just models that are within 6 do it.
It does mean you do have to keep your units near your characters, and you have to kind of remember to do that as well. Whenever you're moving, it means you have to...
Well, I'm probably going to do that anyway with these 2 heroes.
Yeah, that's true. It does depend on what heroes you're taking.
Just have to keep them a little bit closer, which is more annoying.
Whereas the Order one for the Stormcast is not really that useful. It's probably quite useful for me because I always roll 6s when I take my Battleshock tests, so now I can re-roll them.
I mean, it's probably just going to make Battleshock totally irrelevant.
Because I have small units anyway, I'm not usually taking Battleshock tests that often.
Bravery 7's fairly high in this system.
Yeah, if you had a different Order army, because remember it can apply to any Order unit, and some Order armies have much larger units with lower bravery, so it's probably more useful for them. It did mean I risked rolling a 6 in this game rather than just automatically using command point. I suppose more generally, allegiance abilities are an important part of this game because it lets you personalise your army, because sometimes you have, you can take a Stormcast Eternals army and benefit from them all being Stormcast Eternals. And more specifically, there are sometimes sub-factions, for example, of the Stormcast. Different storm hosts can have their own allegiance abilities, which means you can have specific rules for your army if you want.
Usually a sub-faction will specialise in one aspect of the faction. Yeah, and I guess it might be worth pointing out that these are the Grand Alliance allegiance abilities, whereas I think most of the time you would actually take your sub-factions abilities. Like, if you were playing a Nighthaunt army, you'd use the Nighthaunt ones rather than the Death ones. Probably just better in every way.
Yeah, and they're more specifically tailored to the way the Nighthaunt army functions as well. I mean, in the case of the Nighthaunt, it's actually pretty much essential for the way the Nighthaunt army works, because it gives them bonuses that they kind of need. In the same way, the Order one not being that relevant for Stormcast Eternals, they do get Stormcast ones.
I think generally you'd only take Grand Alliance abilities if you had a mixture. So if you had, say, Cities of Sigmar and Stormhost, or if you had a mixture of Soulblight, Gravelords or Nighthaunt, you'd use Death, I suppose.
Yeah, but if you didn't meet any requirements for having anything else, but it just depends what kind of army you're trying to build, I suppose. Quite often the Grand Alliance ones are probably more appropriate for themed or story-based armies where you have a number of different factions or whatever. I suppose we can also say briefly we got some more skulls with this issue.
Yeah, and the little build guide for building your own objectives, which is pretty neat, actually. I guess it's a neat way to use the extra parts from the Evocators and the Hex Race, building your own thing. It's not for everyone, but you can personalise things how you want, that sort of thing. It's nice to do.
I suppose you could question whether we actually needed a second number of skulls, because you get so many in the first batch. If you're not so much into the modelling aspect and you're not that bothered about having a huge number of skulls, it's probably not going to be your most exciting issue of the collection. But on the other hand, if you do want skulls, as we said the first time, it's a cheap way to get them. So
yeah, I think they're about £15 usually.
Yes, if you want skulls, this is a cheap way to get them. But that's it for this video, so if you enjoyed this content then please leave a like and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts on the game or on the allegiance abilities or anything else you have an opinion on. We'll be interested to hear. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys and we will see you in the next one.
Bye for now.